Now, this is Emeka Doru, 26 years old, slim, dark, with eyes that stayed slightly too long on everything. The kind of eyes that were always recording, always observing, always filing things away for later. He had grown up in Onitsha, the last son of a woman who sold second-hand clothes in the main market and a father who drove a bus on the Onitsha-Asaba road every morning like it was a calling from God. They were not poor people. They were the kind of people who had just enough, which in Nigeria means you had everything to lose. Emeka had graduated from Nnamdi Azikiwe University with a second-class upper in mass communication. He had a final year documentary about street traders in Akwa that his lecturer, Dr. Obi, had screened in the department common room and said quietly but clearly, this boy has something. He had his NYSC certificate. He had his transcript. He had a portfolio of short videos he had shot on his phone and edited on a borrowed laptop at the business center near his house. He had 3 church shirts that still looked presentable, a pair of black trousers he rotated carefully, and a dream so large it embarrassed him to say it out loud. He wanted to own a television network. He told no one except his mother. She had nodded the way mothers nod when they believe something you have not yet proven. He came to Lagos with 23,000 naira, a duffel bag, and a contact. One Mr. Bode Adeyemi, a distant family friend who worked at Velocity TV, one of the newer private stations that had begun to make noise with its youth-focused programming. The contact had said casually over a phone call, Come, we'll see what we can do. Emeka arrived on a Monday. He was at the Velocity TV reception by 8:15 a.m. He told the woman at the front desk he was there to see Mr. Bode Adeyemi. She asked his name. She called upstairs. She frowned slightly at her phone. She looked at Emeka. He says he doesn't know anyone by that name. Emeka blinked. Tell him it's Emeka. Emeka Dowu from Onitsha. His cousin is Chief Dowu's second son. Another call. Another pause. He says he's in a meeting. You should try again another time. Emeka stood before a moment. He thanked her. He left. On the bus back to his cousin's flat in Alapere, he sat very still and did not say a word. He came back Tuesday. The same woman, the same call. Mr. Adeyemi was busy. He came back Wednesday, Thursday. By Friday, the receptionist, a young woman named Blessing with very long acrylic nails, had begun to recognize him with a look that was half pity, half irritation. Young man, he is not going to see you. I know, Emeka said, but I'll wait. He sat in the reception for 4 hours with his portfolio on his lap. Nobody came for him. He left at 1 p.m. He tried other stations. Continental Broadcast. He was told they were not hiring. He emailed their HR 5 times. No response. He tried Sunrise Media Group. He got as far as a junior producer named Kunle, who watched 30 seconds of his documentary on his phone, nodded, and said, It's decent, but we need someone with industry experience. Emeka asked how one was supposed to get industry experience without someone giving them a chance. Kunle shrugged with the enthusiasm of a man who had already had this exact conversation too many times. That's the industry, he said, and stood up. He tried Heritage Broadcasting. He was given an application form, told to drop it with the secretary, and the application form was never mentioned again. He tried Nova Star TV, where a woman in HR smiled too brightly and said, We love fresh talent. We'll call you. They did not call him. He tried writing to the CEO of Beacon Media directly. His letter was politely returned with a stamp that read, Not currently accepting unsolicited applications. One morning, 3 months in, Emeka sat on the edge of his cousin's couch, his phone balanced on his knee, and did the calculation. He had sent 41 applications. He had received 4 responses, 3 rejections, and 1 interview that ended when the interviewer asked what his father did for a living, and Emeka said, bus driver. And something in the man's expression shifted just slightly enough to tell him everything he needed to know.
His cousin, Chukudi, was a good man, but his apartment was small and his patients had a ceiling that was slowly becoming visible.
Emeka, how long again? He asked one evening, not unkindly. His wife was in the kitchen. The television was on. The children were somewhere behind a closed door. Chukudi, give me a little more time. I'm not chasing you. I'm just asking. Emeka knew the difference between asking and chasing in a Lagos household. They were the same question. That weekend, Emeka took a bus to the beach. Not for fun. He could not afford fun. He went because it was free and because he needed to think somewhere that was not a cramped sitting room. He sat on the sand with his shoes beside him and watched the water and asked himself the question that had been building for months. What if nobody was going to open the door? What if the door had to be built from scratch? He had his phone. It was a Tecno Camon, 2 years old, with a cracked corner on the screen that he had sealed with a strip of clear tape. The camera was good though. He knew the camera was good because he had tested it, studied it, learned its limitations, and walked around every single one. He sat on that beach for 2 hours. Then he went back to the apartment, borrowed his cousin's phone charger because his was faulty, and began to plan. He started a YouTube channel. He called it Street Frequency. The idea was simple. Real stories from real Lagos people. Not the polished, studio-lit presenter in a blazer version of Lagos that TV stations sold. The actual Lagos. The bus conductor with a university degree who could quote Achebe and still needed to beg for 200 naira. The woman who sold akara at dawn and had been doing it for 30 years and had sent 4 children to university on akara money. The fashion designer in Surulere who made gowns for Nollywood stars and still slept on a mattress on the floor because rent had to come first. He had no ring light. He taped a white bedsheet to the wall behind him and positioned his phone on a stack of textbooks. He edited on a free app he downloaded at midnight because the data was cheaper then. His first video was about a man named Shewun who had been driving Okada for 12 years and had used the money to train himself as an electrical engineer and had recently gotten a job at a company in Lekki. He was still driving Okada on weekends, not because he had to, because he said the road had taught him things the classroom could not. The video was 11 minutes long. In the first week, it got 400 views. Emeka told nobody. He posted a second video, a third. He learned what was working, the pauses, the lights, the way he asked questions that made people forget they were being recorded. He had no budget. He had no crew. He had a Tecno Camon, borrowed data, and the same instinct that Dr. Obi had noticed in that university common room. By his 4th month of posting, a video he made about a Lagos grandmother who had been selling the same pepper soup recipe for 41 years and had quietly, gently built it into a small catering empire went semi-viral. Not international viral, Nigerian viral. The kind where people were sharing it to their family WhatsApp groups and tagging uncles and quoting lines from it in comment sections. It hit 80,000 views in a week, then 300,000. His subscriber count jumped from 2,000 to 31,000 in 12 days. His phone notifications were making sounds he had never heard it make before. And that was when the message came. Not from Mr. Bode Adeyemi, who had refused to see him. Not from Nova Star TV, who had not called him. The message came from a woman named Adize Nosu, a Lagos-based media entrepreneur who had started a digital content studio called Pulse Point 2 years earlier. She had watched his pepper soup grandmother video 3 times. She wrote him a message that was 2 paragraphs long and ended with, "I think we should talk." They met at a coffee shop in Victoria Island. Emeka wore his best church shirt. She wore a blazer and arrived 7 minutes early, which he later learned was her standard. She was 34, direct, and had a habit of asking questions that sounded simple and were not. "What do you want?" she asked after the pleasantries. Emeka looked at her. "I want to own a television network." She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she said, "Okay, start smaller. Come work with me."
He joined Pulse Point as a content producer at a salary that was not impressive but was real and monthly and came with a desk and electricity. He worked. The way a man works when he knows the opportunity is borrowed time until something bigger arrives. He produced 8 videos a month, then 12. He pitched formats, tested ideas, stayed late without being asked, and turned in work that consistently performed above everything else on the platform. He was not trying to impress anyone, he was trying to build something. Within 8 months, Pulse Point's YouTube channel had tripled its subscribers, largely on the back of a documentary series Emeka had proposed, produced, and presented called The Lagos Chronicles. Real people, real Lagos. The formula he had tested alone on a cracked Techno Camon was now running on a full studio setup, and it worked even better with resources behind it.
Adeze gave him a raise, then a promotion, head of content. He was 27 now. He had moved out of his cousin's flat into a small but clean, self-contained apartment in Bagada. He bought a better phone. He paid his cousin back quietly with a note that just said thank you. He called his mother every Sunday without fail. She always asked about church. He always said he was managing. But he had not forgotten the rejections, not with bitterness. He had arranged them neatly in his memory, the way a builder stores materials. He understood now what they had given him. No choice but to build his own door. At Pulse Point, while he ran content during the day, he spent his evenings writing. A business plan, a proposal, a vision document for a media company that would tell African stories with the budget, intention, and skill they deserved. Not charity content, not poverty tourism, premium storytelling, Nigerian owned, Nigeria funded, Nigeria led, built to compete globally. He called it Freak TV. He presented the plan to Adeze. She read every page, asked 14 questions, and on the 15th question said, "How much do you need to start?" They became co-founders. She brought the capital and the network. He brought the vision and the content engine. They registered the company on a Tuesday in April. Emeka was 28 years old. That same week, Continental Broadcast, the station that had not replied to his 5 emails, put out a press release announcing budget cuts and the closure of their digital arm. Emeka read it on his phone during lunch. He said nothing. He put his phone down and went back to work. Freak TV launched with a website, a YouTube channel, and a streaming app that had been built by a 22-year-old developer from Enugu who Emeka had found through a comment section. In the first month, they had 80,000 registered users. The content was unlike anything else on Nigerian digital media. Documentary-level production, storytelling that refused to simplify or sentimentalize, and at the center of it all, the founder's face, the young man from Onitsha, with the cracked Techno Camon, was now on the screen as both creator and narrator. His audience knew his story because he had told it simply on the channel, not for sympathy, for honesty. The internet rewarded the honesty generously. A profile in Tekabal, an interview on a morning radio show in Lagos, then the thing that changed everything. A feature in the African Business Review headlined "The Kid the Industry Rejected is now building his own." The article named the stations. It named the rejections. It was factual and fair and devastating in its quietness. That article was shared 40,000 times in 48 hours. Emeka's DMs became something that required a separate phone. And on a Wednesday morning, his phone rang. An unfamiliar number. He answered. "Hello, am I speaking with Emeka Duru?" "Yes." "This is Mr. Bode Adeyemi. I believe we have a mutual family connection. I've been reading about your work. Extraordinary stuff. I was wondering if we could meet for lunch sometime." Emeka held the phone. Outside his window, Lagos was doing what Lagos always does, living loudly, refusing to pause for anyone. He took a quiet breath. "Mr. Adeyemi," he said pleasantly, "I appreciate the call. I'll have my assistant reach out to schedule something." He hung up. Then he sat still for a long moment. Then he called his mother. She picked up on the second ring. "Emeka, my son." "Mama, how are you?" "I'm fine, Mama. I wanted to tell you something." "Talk now." "You know the network I told you about when I was just starting? The one you said you wanted to own.
Yes, a pause. It has 200,000 subscribers this morning. The line was quiet. Then his mother made a sound that was not quite a word, something between a prayer and a shout. The sound of a woman who had nodded at a dream before it was proven and had been waiting calmly ever since for the world to catch up.
Within 3 years, Freak TV had secured a broadcast license. Within 4, they had signed a content distribution deal that put their programming on 2 international streaming platforms. Within 5, they had a physical studio in Lekki, a staff of 64, and an original series that was shortlisted for an African Film Award. The boy who had sat in a reception for 4 hours while a man upstairs pretended not to know him was now the co-founder and CEO of a media company with a valuation his 23,000 naira self would not have known how to count. Mr. Bode Adeyemi's station, Velocity TV, was struggling. Their digital numbers were declining. Their youth audience had found Freak TV. In an industry report, an analyst wrote, the old guard failed to identify talent when it walked through their door. That talent built a competitor. Emeka read the report. He did not feel triumph exactly. He felt something quieter. The satisfaction of a man who had made something real out of something that had every reason to stay nothing. He kept posting on Freak TV's channel. Still the same instinct, just larger now. Real people, real stories, Lagos in all its violence and beauty and absurdity and grace. He hired young producers fresh from university and told them in their onboarding meeting, you will be rejected. Rejection is information. Use it to build something they did not think you were capable of building. And when you get there, open the door wider than it was opened for you. His mother visited the office the following Easter. He showed her the studio, the editing suites, the conference room with the glass walls. She walked through everything quietly. At the end, she stood in front of the large screen in the lobby that displayed the Freak TV logo on a loop. She looked at it for a long time. Then she turned to her son and said simply, you see, I told you. He laughed. Mama, you barely said anything. I nodded, she said firmly. A mother's nod is a full sentence. Moral lesson. A door that will not open is not always a locked door. Sometimes it is a sign that you are meant to build the building entirely. Rejection does not mean you are not enough. It sometimes means you are too much for a room that was not designed to hold what you are carrying. Be patient. Build quietly. Let the work speak at a volume that interruptions cannot drown out. And when you arrive, remember the reception where they made you wait. And make sure nobody who comes through your own door is ever made to wait for what they have already earned. Thank you for listening and watching Tales by Blesser. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories.